but think that now might be a good time for a little fire and ice. These
do not know. There's never a good time for fire and ice.
What happens when you mix fire and ice?
Warm water, baby.
It's bubbling, baby. Warm water. Warm water.
It is time for a little fire and ice. Coming at you live over here at Bikini Joes 3903. I had to get that one out. That was easy.
Good. Good job.
3903 Rich Beem on the corner of Rich Beem and Zaragoza. I don't even know the address half the time, Brandon, because it's right down the street from where I live. So it's on my favorite time or my favorite side of town. So, you know, I'm a happy guy whenever I got to move 2 feet.
Right. Last week I was happy. This week you're happy.
And next week you'll be happy again. Oh, our plight, Brandon, our plight. It is upon us. A lot of stuff that went on in the sports world, the retirement of Tom Brady, LeBron James on the precipice, Brandon, of surpassing the one and only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with what everybody thought was going to be one of those unbreakable records. Not anymore.
Nope. Nope.
And, of course, things that happened. My buddy here went 0-2 last week.
Oh, gosh, did he ever. What a moron. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I know. Don't ever listen to me again, folks.
So there it is. Brandon owes me, agrees.
Yes,
he probably owes a whole bunch of other people stuff, too, because he was confident. You were overly confident with your picks last week, my guy.
I was, unfortunately, a little too confident. Yeah, and I goofed. And, yes, I won't forget about our greens. Don't worry. I did goof. No bueno, man. No bueno. Oh, well.
That's why you were asking me what my favorite order at McDonald's was. Now I get it.
You like the dollar menu? I don't even know if there's a dollar menu anymore.
Okay, so we can do real quick recaps with last week's games, right? Because it's already in the past, but I just want to get your opinions on some of the stuff. The first game, absolute dog shit, right? Watching Philadelphia, Davis Philadelphia Eagles beat the living hell out of a seemingly defenseless San Francisco 49ers. I know the excuse machine has been working overtime with San Francisco 49er fans coming up with, oh, my goodness, we only had our third-string quarterback, and then we were knocked down to our fourth-string quarterback. Pity us, pity us, pity us. You know how I am, Brandon. Injuries happen everywhere. Not the excuse for why a team loses. What did you make out of that game? Is Philadelphia that much better than everyone else?
They're exceptional. They really are, and they've gelled at the right time. And, I mean, despite Hurts being injured there for a minute down the stretch, I was extremely impressed the way they handled San Francisco with ease. And I'm one that's going to say that even if they have Purdy the whole game, that Philadelphia takes care of business with relative ease because of their offensive line, because of their plethora of weapons they have, because of their dominant defense. I mean, Philadelphia is the real McCoy. And, I mean, to me, it just proves that you get the right coach that comes in there. You add on those little additions in the offseason, and it's about chemistry. And you know what? For anybody that says Hurts wasn't a very good quarterback, they were sadly mistaken. I mean, this team and San Francisco, look, again, it was red hot despite not having their quarterback. And, yes, they were at a distinct disadvantage with the majority of that game, unfortunately, because I would have liked to have seen it be a better game. But with all that said, Philadelphia is playing so well at the perfect time of the year. And I'm telling you, it's going to be an interesting Super Bowl coming up because of the way they're playing. But nevertheless, I mean, I was disappointed with the way San Francisco performed. And you never want to see an injury like that occur, especially in a game of that magnitude. But yes, to answer your question, I personally feel that Philadelphia is just that good at this point.
Brandon feels Philadelphia is that good. I feel Philadelphia is that good. Look, everyone says there was a couple missed calls. If this goes this way, if this goes this way. I've said it a bunch of times. If my aunt had a penis, she'd be my uncle. So you can play the what if game all you want.
That's a good one.
But the fact of the matter is that what happened is San Francisco went into Philadelphia, got slapped around.
Right.
Philadelphia is now going to the Super Bowl. Yep. I believe David even called me right after the game and was like, "You could not have predicted any of this to have happened because it was ugly.
It was ugly. It was ugly. It was not a good game. I was bored the majority of that game. I mean, I think a lot of people were. It was garbage, obviously, in comparison to the AFC Championship game. But But ultimately, I mean, look, I mean, as much as you and I hate Philadelphia, obviously, being Cowboys fans, you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, this is their second trip to the Super Bowl in what, 5 seasons? And to be able to rebound from losing, to me, a good coach in Doug Peterson and making that weird call a few years back, I'm extremely impressed. I really am. And I really think that Hurts has a brilliant future ahead of him. But here's the thing, though, man, when it's all said and done, what teams are usually successful, especially not being great the year before? The teams that have the friggin' stones to go out and to acquire the A.J. Browns and to make the little moves and to wheel and deal. We don't see the behind the scenes. We don't appreciate the behind the scenes as much as we should. But ultimately, the behind the scenes of that organization is a smart and well-run organization.
I have a few friends that I think would dispute that type of stuff. A lot of people, our guy Stephen Michael Puga hates.
I was going to say our buddy Puga. He's got to say something.
He
breaking his balls a lot.
Howie Roseman and everyone over there in the GM office.
Are you not in the Super Bowl or what?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like everyone was like, "Oh, Jerry Jones is a horrible, absolutely horrible GM." He's got some pretty good, he's got a history with it.
Win, that's all.
I do want to ask our guy David though, real quick, like just how he feels about his team, his Philadelphia Eagles, his beloved Philadelphia Eagles, who he was extremely reluctant to pick last week. How are you feeling about your team being in the Super Bowl, buddy?
Sports is a funny thing. The one variable is how quickly Patrick Mahomes will recover, because there's only so much that he can work a leg that hasn't fully healed. I don't care how big of a warrior you are.
Good point. It's a good point about Mahomes.
So let's talk about that game, though, because that was a game that we could say did ultimately change based on the call of a referee. At the end of the day, OC pushing Mahomes that far out of bounds, that flag's going to be thrown 100 times out of 100 times, Brandon.
Stupid move. Hard to hold back, but it's a bad move on his part, though.
And it looks like.
But did it have anything to do with inertia? You got these.
No. David's saying, like, if you have anything to do with
inertia.
Unfortunately, like, especially with the NFL and especially with quarterbacks, you can be running full speed, and the second that quarterback releases the ball and you're that like an inch away from the quarterback, if you aren't stopping, the flag is coming out. It doesn't matter about your inertia.
They're protecting the QBs.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
And that's the thing, right, is you'll see a lot of people, especially Cincinnati Bengal fans. I put out a clip on Instagram the other day, and everyone's telling me, well, there was a lot of bad calls in that game. The fact of the matter is it came down to a singular call, and it was the right call, and ultimately it gave. And you never do this with Patrick Mahomes. It gave them 15 yards to kick a makeable field goal in that freezing temperature. I think the game temperature was 8 degrees.
Yeah, it was freezing.
So if it was a 50-yard field goal, that's not a good field goal.
No.
And instead, it went from being a 60-yard field goal to a 45-yard field goal. Kansas City makes it. What did you make of that call? Was it the right call in your mind? And what would you have liked to see different if something was messed up in that game? Because I thought the officiating was halfway decent for an NFL game with what we are used to.
I thought there were some very questionable calls in that game. Honestly, I think that the officials did a half-assed job in both games, but especially in the AFC Championship game, I think there was a non-holding call there on KC that certainly allowed Patrick Mahomes to get open. They're just always going to be the non-calls that just don't happen. To me, you could argue both sides of the coin and say those are good because they're letting them play, but of course you're going to call when he gets hit out of bounds. I mean, that was an unfortunate way for that game to end, as good of a game as it was. But I mean, here's the thing. Look at what KC's defense did to get that interception late. I mean, to me, that was the game changer. And ultimately, I would have liked to have seen the game, because if that doesn't happen, if he doesn't get hit out of bounds, that game goes into overtime, and who knows who ends up winning that game. Okay, because
it could have been another one of those Buffalo Kansas City games where it just goes back and forth.
Yeah, and this time we would have seen the new overtime rules for the first time, which would have been nice in the postseason. But long story short is, it's the way things transpired, and I mean, it's unfortunate because I see that KC is look, it's interesting that they got that win, especially with a hobbled Patrick Mahomes, and the fact that he only had to run once and he ends up running at the end of the game to set him up in great field position for that game-winning field goal just shows the heart and determination of Patrick Mahomes and why he is the best quarterback in the sport. It is going to be interesting to see, though, how he recovers. He does have the 2 weeks, which is really nice, but usually with a high ankle sprain, you need 3 to 6 weeks, guaranteed to be 100%. So there's no way he's going to be 100% for the Super Bowl.
I said it last week. I'll say it again this week, Brandon. I don't think that it's as severe of a high ankle sprain as a lot of people are making it seem, because you and I have seen it a million times. If it's a super severe, even with it being the AFC Championship game, he ain't playing. And if he is playing, he ain't looking that good.
No.
So I think it's more on the mild side. as the high ankle sprain goes, I think they'll have him nice and taped up. The 2 weeks is going to help out a lot.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Especially, and then being over there in Phoenix, like, the nice warm weather, you get nice and warm. You don't have to be cold all the time.
Right.
It's going to be perfect. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's there. That's for sure. It's a good Super Bowl destination.
Rarely do we get the matchup, though, of the one seed in each conference representing the conference in the Super Bowl. I'm excited about the Super Bowl because I think it's going to be a ton of fun. You have the brand new innovative offense that Nick Sirianni implemented in Philadelphia. Also, shout out to my dude, Pat Costello. And then you have the Andy Reid offense, which is always, evolving and one of those things that's just never the same. And, he always throws in wrinkles, and he's such a brilliant offensive mind with arguably the greatest quarterback at the end of the day that we could say is the greatest quarterback of all time.
Sure.
Like there's literally a chance of that happening, even with Tom Brady just exiting the building, right?
I have an idea for a new lottery. People can buy tickets to guess the date that Brady will end his retirement.
I think this one's legit, but we'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. Okay, so going back to like the Super Bowl and the way that everything's set up, we obviously will break it down a little bit more next week whenever we get there. I'm just so excited to see that we've got these two great matchups between these two great teams. Looking at it right now, Brandon, before you do any more analysis before next week, who are you taking in the Super Bowl?
Philadelphia. I mean, I say Philadelphia because I just honestly, I look between these two teams. I think they're the better team. I do at this point, but obviously the better team doesn't always win. I mean, but, if you want to break it down, I just look at, piece by piece, and I see a team that is obviously really happy to be there, but certainly deservedly so. I just feel that, yes, okay, Mahomes is the better quarterback, but Hurts has really, had a coming out party this year. I feel that I think if you look at what's going to make the difference is two main things: Philadelphia's offensive line and their defense. I think their defense, now granted, KC's defense has been playing better as of late, but that was one of their deficiencies, if you want to call it, this year. That, certainly as long as your defense gets healthy at the right time and good at the right time, everything else is irrelevant. But I give the slight edge to Philly. Like I said, I think their O-line is great. I feel they have, I don't know. I'm not going to say they have more weapons, because no matter who KC loses, Mahomes, as long as you have Mahomes, you're good to go. I mean, you and I could be playing wide receiver and they'd still be successful with Patrick Mahomes at the helm.
The problem there is if Mahomes' leg doesn't fully heal, he can't do a running game.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, how mobile is he even going to be? I mean, with that Philadelphia defense and their defensive line, I think they're going to try to contain him and very well maybe do a very good job, I should say.
So let's break that down from that angle, right? Because I'm choosing Kansas City. No matter what happens, I'm riding with Kansas City, because you already know how I feel. To be the man, you got to beat the man.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes is the man. What's the most important position in sports?
Well, obviously the QB.
Not just in football, in sports, it is the quarterback.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
I think, and it's not a huge gulf, but there is still a gulf between what Patrick Mahomes is able to do and what Jalen Hurts is able to do as passers, right? Obviously, as a more dynamic athlete, Jalen Hurts leaps and bounds better than that of Patrick Mahomes. But we mentioned this last week, and I brought it up to you last week, because Cincinnati's defense is the same type where it's going to contain the quarterback, and it's not going to let the quarterback get out of the pocket and run. Patrick Mahomes is the best pocket passer in the NFL by far. You're going to give Patrick Mahomes a pocket? Give him time to actually sit there and pick apart your defense? Yeah. It doesn't matter how good your defense is. You give that guy time, you are done.
Like
that's simple, right? So, yes, maybe he's not as mobile. He wasn't as mobile last week, right? We still saw him as a pocket passer, still one of the most accurate passes there is, still has a cannon for a right arm, and is able to get the ball wherever he wants to get the ball, whenever he wants to get the ball there. I think the best thing would be, if you're Philadelphia, is force him to break contain, to get him on the move, because then you're putting that ankle that's injured on the line there. Obviously, if you're Kansas City's offensive line, I think you're going to have a little more protection. We saw against Cincinnati, who does have a really good pass rush. We saw what Kansas City did, where they have multiple tight ends and chippers in there to help out with blocking and keeping Patrick Mahomes safe. I think if you're Kansas City, you go in with the similar same plan as what you or game plan as what you did against Cincinnati, and you're going to have yourself a shot. And if it comes down to whatever quarterback has the ball at the end of the game, I'm putting my money on Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, you'd have to. I mean, if it's that close to the game, I mean, Mahomes is Mahomes, for a reason. And, I mean, he's always going to find the open guy. He's always going to make those little shovel passes where they're, like, literally unstoppable. And, he's going to find Travis Kelce. He's going to do whatever it takes to get his team to win. And, I mean, obviously, look, from a coaching perspective, you have to give Andy Reid the edge. Andy Reid is a friggin' genius, man.
And he fired Nick Sirianni's ass.
Which is, more reason why Sirianni wants his redemption, right?
Philadelphia fired Andy Reid.
They did, which is another reason why Andy Reid wants his
There's
redemption.
so many storylines.
There's a lot of little shticks. It's the Andy Reid Bowl. It's there's a lot of little subplots, which is great. I mean, it's great. It would be great in a novel if you were thinking about it. But in the respect that Patrick Mahomes is going to do what Patrick Mahomes does. I mean, if you're concerned, about him not being Mahomes, don't be, because he will find a way to be ready a week from Sunday. And ultimately, though, but in the respect that you have to try to contain him. Look, if your secondary isn't on, he will burn you. Okay, if you give him the open field, maybe he'll burn you, but we'll see because of the ankle and where he's at in that respect. But clearly, Philadelphia has to come up with the game plan of their lives to be able to at least contain him, because that's all you're going to do is ultimately contain him. You're not going to stop him. It's going to be he's too damn good of a quarterback to ultimately just completely shut him down.
Next week is the culmination, Brandon, of our 6-month-long love-making session with football that we've had. We're about to be covered in our shame glazes of different variations, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. I call this the saddest time of the year because we know right down the middle there's one game left, right, and then we are done. But I am looking forward to this because I feel that this is the best matchup. When the regular season ended, this was going to be the best matchup. Now that the playoffs are over, it's the matchup we got, and it's going to be absolutely fun to watch. I'm super excited for it. I want to give a shout-out to our guy, Cappy. Steve Kaplowitz is going to be out at the Super Bowl as well with Stephen Foster. They're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff out there. I believe it's going to be 6 hours of live broadcasting on our friends, 600 ESPN El Paso, that they're going to be bringing people out live at Radio Row. Dude, that's a dream come true for my guy. I'm so proud of him that he's able to do that. Congrats to you, Cappy. Everyone go check out 600 ESPN El Paso. Give a little bit of love to my guy. Give him support. It's the first time El Paso's been in the Super Bowl.
That's pretty cool.
That's insane, man.
That's pretty cool. I mean, you got to give them a lot of credit. And it'll be nice to see them out there. I mean, it's a hop, skip, and a jump, a 6-hour drive. Not bad at all. I mean, I'm really excited for them. I think Cappy's going to cherish the moment. He's going to really enjoy it. And, I mean, you're freaking Radio Row at the Super Bowl. I mean, you'd honestly, as a sportscaster, you can't get much better than that.
His table is right in front of the NFL Legends table.
Wow.
So he's got like prime real estate. That's
pretty
right
cool,
there.
Man. That's
you just
awesome.
Bring in all these old guys.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you got a minute? Bring them over. Let's talk to Emmitt Smith.
I also want to give a shout out to our people over here at Bikini Joes. There's like a whole bunch of people here. We're not used to it.
Good crowd this morning.
They're the home of the Half Off Nachos. Come on by, get Half Off Nachos. I think that's why Brandon wanted to come this week too, because he owes me that grease. It's like, where can I get as many discounts as possible where I don't have to pay full price? You're taking me to Cattleman's, my guy. That's what we're doing.
We're gonna get
Ruth's
a good
Chris is where we're going.
We're gonna get a good grease. Don't worry, my friend. For you, nothing but the best.
McDonald's dollar menu. I want to give a shout out to our bartender as well, Des. She's doing a great job hooking us all up. The beer of choice that I've got today is my Shiner Bock. They don't have Elite 8 Light Lager, but I do want to talk to you about something cool that Elite 8 Light Lager is doing, Brandon. It's called the 8-Can Challenge, benefiting Back on My Feet. They help empower people who are fighting homelessness. So what they want you to do is get an 8-pack or a 6-pack, however many beers you can get of Elite 8 Light Lager. Drink them responsibly. You can pick them up at your local Albertsons. Stack them up in any type of creative way you want to, and then send them a video of you knocking them cans down. I'm trying to think, maybe I'll just pick you up and throw you at those cans that way because of how bad your picks were last week.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the 8-Can Challenge. Whenever you post that video up on social media, tag them at Drink8Beer and at Back on My Feet. Each video is generating $8 for a donation to Back on My Feet to, once again, help empower people who are fighting homelessness and get them back on their feet. A great job by our friends over at Elite 8 Light Lager, wearing the hat today as well. Elite 8 Light Lager made by our quarterback, our favorite quarterback,
Troy Aikman.
The one and only Troy Aikman. I got his name right this time. I think the last time I said it with you, I called him Tony Romo. I will not make that mistake ever again.
Don't do that.
Make your next beer Elite with Elite 8 Light Lager. Tell them that Brandon and Tip sent you, and they'll have no idea who it is. You'll probably get kicked smooth the hell out of wherever it is that you were at.
Who's Tip?
Who are these guys?
He must be a schmuck.
our guy David brought it up. Tom Brady, the GOAT, calling it quits. Question number one, Brandon, do you believe it?
Yeah.
Question number two, where does he rank, not just in football, because we know where he ranks in football, but of greatest athletes of all time? Because people are like, has he now usurped Jordan as like the personification of winning?
Well, first off, yes, he's. I think it's done this year. I think he should have been done last year, and I feel that he realizes now that he needs to spend more time with his family, and unfortunately, he had the divorce and all that, and that screwed with his head this past year. You could tell he wasn't nearly as good as the year before. I mean, there's no reason for him not to be done. He doesn't need to come back. He doesn't need to prove anything else. And sure, he's going to miss the game, but he also has a multi-gazillion-dollar contract waiting for him in the broadcast booth. So it's not like he's going to be bored during the regular season. Secondly, I mean, he's truly the GOAT of all sports. And I say that just because, and it's hard for me to say that over Jordan as much as I love Jordan and the Bulls. But, you know, it's like whoever, again, I mean, and we may see this, is going to win 6 Super Bowls with one organization and be the man that, you know, literally took over for a damn good quarterback in Bledsoe and go on to win 6, especially in the way he did, and then go on and win another one past 40 with another organization that hadn't done jack squat for years in an unusual season in that COVID year and all that. I mean, we'll just never see it again. And I mean, the fact that he ended up winning a Super Bowl MVP with Tampa, the fact that he took them from relative obscurity to winning a Super Bowl, the fact that he has been such an amazing player for so long, what he's done, all of his records, all of his accomplishments. I mean, to me, hands down, in the physicality of today's sport, in the physicality and what it means to be such a great player in the NFL, I would just have to say he's number one in my opinion in terms of GOATs.
So, like, I want to expand this out, like greater than Muhammad Ali, greater than, you know, Babe Ruth or Barry Bonds or whoever you want to put in from baseball. Who would be the guy in baseball now? Is it still Babe Ruth?
I always like Babe Ruth.
No, let's say, like,
I mean, I think about what he did based on all these years, you know, obviously how the game has changed, but, you know, what he did and how he was an amazing pitcher and hitter, you just don't see that today. So, I mean, yeah, to me, Babe Ruth is the GOAT in baseball. Obviously, MJ in football, Wayne, or basketball rather, you know, Wayne Gretzky in hockey, and you know, I'd say clearly, yeah, Muhammad Ali in boxing, and then Tom Brady in football. But Tom Brady, number one overall GOAT if you're ranking GOATs per sports. To me, he's the Papa Goats. He's the goatiest goat. He's the goatiest of all goats.
Okay, I mean, I tend to agree with you too, because like no one did it that way. Like everyone else had like all these expectations. You come out as like these huge, you know, personalities and people like that. This is a dude who was the last pick in the 6th round, right? Like nobody had any of these expectations for him. He comes out, Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. He tells the team, Drew ain't getting his job back.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have a good relationship because of that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, look, that's an interesting perspective to take. And I mean, again, you know, people don't realize how hard it is to go from one organization to the next. Not only get acclimated to a new coach, you used to have a new playbook. To me, what really, you know, solidified him as number one was, like I said, going to Tampa and winning the Super Bowl. That was unbelievable.
So doing it with another team.
I mean, who does that? Who does that? I mean,
LeBron James.
Yeah, but, you know, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll give you credit.
Deion Sanders.
Yeah, but it's not football. And I just...
Deion Sanders did it in football.
Yeah. He wasn't a quarterback, though.
Oh, okay. My bad.
He wasn't.
My bad guy.
He was
I apologize.
A DB. I mean, yes, he did it. You went from, you know, San Francisco to Dallas, but
Peyton Manning.
He was a game manager that year. It was all about their defense. I mean, you want me to?
And the one thing that's the toughest part is what goes on in the locker room. It's not just learning the plays, it's learning the culture of the team and what motivates all of the players. And Tom seems to have mastered that, which is a showing of leadership. So what makes him the GOAT is not just his ability to pass and stay in the pocket, but it's to learn and get along with the rest of the team.
And that year, if you remember, they had to go into New Orleans and beat the Saints. So they had to go into Green Bay and beat the Packers to get to the Super Bowl. So that is what made it even more impressive. And then beat an amazing Chiefs team and beat the shit out of them in the Super Bowl. That was like, wow, like that was really a hell of a run, man. That's one of the best runs we've ever seen in Super Bowl history.
I think David also hit it on the nail on the top of the head too, right? Like, how many guys did we see go to Tampa Bay simply to play with Tom Brady, take pay cuts?
Oh yeah,
just so that they could say, you know what, I played with this guy, and we know we have a legit shot of making a Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
You don't get that anywhere else.
They brought
right?
the band back together.
Yeah,
Gronk's came back, for crying out loud. That was awesome, man.
You don't see that happening with LeBron James, even though he's got his own level of greatness. You don't see that happening with a whole bunch of other people, right? No. The entire Bulls organization fell apart because no one wanted to take pay cuts.
Unfortunately, yeah, that and you know, Krause and Phil Jackson, you know, they were like Rams. They batted heads, and no matter what happened, you know, Krause didn't want to bring Phil Jackson back, which ultimately was an unfortunate thing because they could have won 9-10 championships. I mean, who knows? Well, I'd say at least 8. I mean, they won 6. So, I mean, they would have kept winning, though. There's no doubt they would have kept winning had MJ stayed in the rest of the team.
Brandon, I want you and everyone else to keep an eye out on my social media at Mr. Tipton33 on Instagram and Twitter, Michael Robert Tipton on Facebook as well. I want you guys to check that out because I'm going to be posting up a video later on today now that our friends over at Three Missions Brewery have posted up a brand new beer. It is called, Brandon, the Moon City Japanese Blue Lager. This beer is literally blue. The color is a deep, dark blue, and it transitions from blue to purple. It is absolutely delicious. They finally got it out there. They posted it up. This is their new beer of the month with our friends over there at Three Missions Brewery, 10179 Socorro Road. So go check that out because it's going to be absolutely delicious. Everybody will love it. Look for the video that I'm about to post up on my social media a little bit later on today at Mr. Tipton33, and then give our friends at Three Missions Brewery a like on Instagram as well. Brandon, you need to go try that beer out. It'll change your life. I've never seen a beer that deep and that vibrant of a blue.
Well, that sounds good. I mean, that sounds
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm calling it the Blue Bonnet just because to me it fits better that way. It's much better than some of the other things that they said, but that's just me being an asshole because that's what I am.
There's no doubt about that.
Wow, you guys laugh. It's not even like, no, you're not, buddy. It's just, oh, yeah, you know what? You are.
I agree, and he laughs. We're
wow.
two pricks. You know,
guys. This hurts.
Take us or leave us, you know? Friends like you.
It hurts so deeply. Holy hell.
We both agree.
Speaking of something that's going to hurt, Sean Payton to the Denver Broncos. Everyone thought Sean Payton was holding out. Everyone thought that Mike McCarthy was going to get fired by the Dallas Cowboys. He ultimately doesn't get fired. I thought that Sean Payton was going to be the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He signs a 5-year deal with the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos have to send some draft pick capital over to the New Orleans Saints because he was still under contract with New Orleans. Now New Orleans has multiple first-round draft picks, multiple second-round draft picks. Denver, though, with the trades that they've made over the last 2 seasons, in this upcoming draft, only have 5 total draft picks, 2 in the 3rd round, and I think 3 between the 4th and 5th round. So, yeah, it's not horrible picks, but they're not great picks as well. And this team finished at the dead last of the division, bottom of the division, 5-win season for them, not what anyone was expecting. Is Sean Payton, along with an aging Russell Wilson, going to be enough to help out the Denver Broncos get out of the basement?
It's a very difficult division, so that's to be determined. I mean, it's going to be very challenging, no doubt. I mean, I don't know about Wilson. I think they need to start looking elsewhere. Look, I understand Dallas's philosophy for not acquiring him because it's hard to give up a lot of draft picks for a coach. I mean, you're not getting a player, you're getting a coach, right? You're not getting that game-changing or organization-changing player, but maybe you're getting that organization-changing coach in Sean Payton. I mean, to be determined how he performs in the AFC, and he's going to a ridiculously ruthless division. So it's going to be challenging, but I mean, if anybody can get it done, it's him. And I mean, he is a great coach. I love him. I think Denver certainly has some pieces to be a good team, but darn does it suck to have to play KC twice a year. And the likes of San Diego
Superchargers.
I mean, even though they, you know, but that's still another playoff team. You know, the Raiders are always the Raiders, you know, and this and that. But it's. I mean, I feel that in the end, I just hope that he can make a splash with them because they gave up the friggin' ranch to acquire him. They really, really did. That's a lot to get a coach.
Looking at Denver and what they have, right? Not really anything on offense that you want to write home about. Maybe you got Jaron Judy. I think that's a trade piece. If you're the Broncos, you want to try to get more draft capital, right? That might be the guy that you try to push out there as someone that you get rid of on defense. But this doesn't look like a team to me, even with a Sean Payton, that's going to be, people that are setting fire to the world or anything like that.
Yeah.
I honestly feel, and this might be me leading into another part of the stuff that I wanted to talk about today as well, Kellen Moore going over to San Diego or LA, because he's actually the Chargers are in LA. Kellen Moore going to the Chargers is going to help out Justin Herbert as a quarterback, although I would say us as Cowboys fans, not so much Daver, we got to actually watch a lot of these games and see, okay, he's got a pretty easy to figure out offensive scheme, right? Maybe that's why the Cowboys got rid of him and gave the play calling abilities back to Mike McCarthy. But I think the Chargers are getting better. I think Kansas City obviously is exponentially better than everyone else in that division. The Raiders, I think the best thing for the Raiders is to trade Derek Carr along with another player, maybe some cash, to Green Bay and bring in Aaron Rodgers and get that connection with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams again, right? Sure. With a much better defense, a much better run game, and now you've got some other stuff there that can make you maybe not win the division because you got to deal with Patrick Mahomes all the time, but it makes you a contender and you possibly get in the playoffs, and hey, anything can happen, right? If you're that and you're looking at Denver right now, there ain't a snowball's chance in hell for you.
No, there isn't.
I mean, you would have to catch lightning in a bottle multiple times in order for you to even make it to the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot. I mean, you talk about being in a catch-22 or whatever, and just an impossible situation. I mean, but if anybody feels they can get it done, it's Peyton. And I mean, look, he
had 17 years.
Yeah,
since his last Super Bowl championship.
Right.
17
it's been a minute.
years.
It's been a minute. And
how many
times
have
one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history too.
How many times
doesn't have?
How many times did he squander that best quarterback in NFL history?
Quite a few times.
I mean, yeah, they made it to a lot of NFC championship games. You already know my feelings on it. It doesn't matter if you make the NFC championship or the AFC championship. It ain't winning the damn Super Bowl.
No, it isn't.
So for me, it's like, okay, yeah, you can do all this stuff and it'll be cool. You can make the playoffs. You can do all that. At the end of the day, we've seen his offenses look somewhat bad at times, and we've seen him squander some really amazing opportunities despite being in the NFC South, which for a long time was a
garbage
shit division.
Terrible division.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So for me, if you're looking at that as Sean Payton coming in and being some great savior, they caught a lot of momentum with everything that happened following Katrina, getting into all the momentum that they got to win the Super Bowl. But after that in 2006, Brandon, it was a lot of nothing.
There was a ton of nothing ultimately.
And it's not like they didn't have players.
No, because they had some ponies. They always had the ponies, and they just weren't able to. They were underachievers because if you look at them, if you look at the Saints, easily. I mean, look, how are you measured? Obviously by Super Bowls. You should have won at least a couple. I mean, you win a couple, that's like ridiculously respectable. You win one, hey, at least you got that one. Take that monkey off your back, and one for the franchise that were the Aints for so long. But in the end, I feel that he is going to be able to at least build a winning tradition in Denver because I do like what he brings to the table. There's going to be guys that want to play for him because he's Sean Payton. And ultimately, he's going to be able to build at least a respectable franchise and organization because he is going to be good at, taking advantage of his draft picks and bringing in free agents. And like I said, you have the fundamentals of a decent defense and at least a Super Bowl MVP QB there that maybe has a quarter of a tank left possibly.
No, he's washed.
You think so?
I told you at the beginning of the season he was washed, and we're like, no, he wasn't. It took him until week 15 to throw more touchdowns than he has bathrooms in his damn stadium or in his house, I mean. Like it's insane to think about that, man. Like the guy just doesn't have it anymore. And it's not like Denver had a horrible offensive line, and maybe they just don't have weapons, right? But was there anything that you saw from Russell Wilson that made you think, yeah, maybe we should keep going on with this? They're tied to him for 5 years with a whole bunch of money of guaranteed money.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there's nothing there I could think of.
Surrounding him with more weapons?
That is a challenge, but they don't. So David asked the challenge trying to surround Russell Wilson with more weapons. That 100% is the challenge. They don't have the draft capital for the next 3 years because they traded all that away to get Russell Wilson.
Nor the capital, no.
And now they also traded it away to get Sean Payton.
Yeah.
So you don't have draft capital, and now you're salary capped because your quarterback is making about 36% of the salary cap on your team. And he's garbage.
They just don't have that many weapons in general. I mean, I agree with the whole Judy thing. I mean, Judy has the capability of being a great receiver, but geez, that seems like that's all they have.
Cortland Sutton has been,
I
mean, for me, he's an underachiever. For a guy that was, has highly
Where's
touted.
The ground game? I mean, the ground game is, they have that kid, they acquired, last year I think they drafted him, but I don't know. I mean, I feel that.
What's his name?
I'm just trying to remember. It's escaped me. I knew you were going to break my balls about this one.
I don't know his name either. I'm trying to figure it out.
I know. And let me think about it. Just a minute. I don't know. Look at my phone.
He's got to look at his phone right now as I'm talking about it.
Well, look, a dinosaur.
Oh. That was unfair for you to point at David that way. I'm messing with you, Dave.
I wasn't referring to him.
You're the one that pointed that way.
Who can you pull him with?
That's right. That's our buddy Daver,
I think I need to turn that into a shirt. If you can't pull a Daver with friends, who can you pull it with?
I like that. Daver. Daver. That's a good one. That's good.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in the AFC West, right?
No doubt.
I don't know if this is a big enough splash because, like you said, Sean Payton was a big fish in a little pond of the NFC South. Russell Wilson was a big fish in a little pond with how bad the NFC West was for such a long period of time. Now you've got them in the same division as Patrick effing Mahomes. That's his middle name. I think he went to the court and changed his middle name to effing Mahomes. And then you're also in the same boat with a guy who's up and coming, who's up there with, talent level on Patrick Mahomes with Justin Herbert. I just don't know right now. The only team that you might be able to leapfrog would be Vegas, depending on what they're able to do. But they're hosting the Super Bowl next year. They've got a whole bunch of, stakes in wanting to make this team actually look good. I think they're going after a real big off-season splash to get someone that's going to help them out. I don't know if anything Denver's doing right now is actually going to help them become the third best team in that division.
It's going to be challenging. It's going to be tough. It's going to be one of the key stories in the offseason, and we'll see what kind of acquisitions we're able to make. Oops, sorry about that. But anyway, I feel like lemon on the computer. Anyways, let me get these napkins.
Brandon is squirting everywhere.
Don't say that too loud. Anyways, boy, where was I? I lost my train of thought. No, I mean, it's going to be intriguing. It's going to be one of the big stories going into next season. But I would like to really see. I would really like to see Rodgers go to Vegas. I think that would be really cool. I feel Vegas can afford him. I feel that that'll be his last hurrah. That'll be awesome if that happens.
So you got to look at it, right? Like what the NFL carousel, quarterback carousel is, and we've got a lot of them this year, right? Like what do you do with a guy like Jimmy G? You got to know he's got to be on his outs in San Francisco because they do have ultimately both quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, will be back. They're both on rookie deals. Right, so you don't have to worry about trying to pay a whole bunch of money out there to a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. So he's going to be on the move. Then you're going to have, ultimately, is Matt Ryan going to retire? Is he going to not retire? What's going to happen with that? And there's going to be a whole bunch of moving parts out there on what could happen with quarterbacks going forward. The only deal that I see happening, because Derek Carr's still under contract, he's owed $40 million on February 15th. Aaron Rodgers is going to be making $52 million next year. He ain't opting out of that. You don't leave $52 million on the table. The only deal I can see is that LA, or Las Vegas rather, tries out a trade for Aaron Rodgers because now you've got money that is similar to each other that's able to be moved. This isn't like fantasy stuff. This isn't like Madden where you go in and mess around and find a way to get these trades done, right? It's all about money and making sure that you guys have the same similar cap hits. Derek Carr, to me, from what we saw last year, not a far drop-off from Aaron Rodgers, right? What you lose whenever you get Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay is the drama and the fact that you got a guy who has made it obvious that he doesn't want to be there anymore.
No,
right?
He clearly doesn't. It's time for him to move on.
And with Vegas, you clearly didn't want Derek Carr anymore.
No, he doesn't.
Why not go out and get a guy who is still looked at a lot as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? I don't see it.
Sure.
But it's still looked at as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Go get him, team him up with the guy that he was with, and all the numbers make sense. The only thing that I can see won't do this is that Aaron Rodgers is such a dickhead that he might just nuke any opportunity that he has just to have the stranglehold that he has on Green Bay.
I mean, that's a possibility, and we know that he can be a difficult and challenging individual, to say the least, but I do really think that that's a divorce in the making, and he really wants to move on, and they want to move on from him, and it's time to say happy trails. So, I mean, I feel that as much as of an ego as he has and a jerk he could be, he realizes he needs to jump ship, and it needs to be over, and that he is in the dwindling stages of his career. So his window is maybe this big.
If you're Aaron Rodgers or if you're Derek Carr, do you take a serious look at the New York Jets?
Yes. And I say that because they had some promising moments last year. They have a lot of pieces. And that's the thing about these up-and-coming teams is you need to look at a couple factors. How well coached are they? What type of cap space do you have? And lastly, and really this could be most important, is what type of pieces do you have to go forward? What type of weapons do I have? And clearly the Jets have the running game. They have the receivers. They've had brilliant signs of a good, decent defense. So they're an up-and-coming organization in my eyes. And also it's a winnable division. I don't think anybody's running away with East as much as you would say, hey, it's Buffalo, but Buffalo's pretty damn good. And I got that Tipton look, which I always enjoy. But ultimately, Buffalo, they're underachievers in my opinion. So you're going to say, hey, it's going to be Buffalo. Well, New England is still.
Well, I wasn't going to say like, okay, yeah,
Miami.
Buffalo. Yeah, like I think it's a two-way race between Buffalo and Miami, right? Like it has to be that way.
But I mean, still, look at what the Jets were doing. They were hot for a minute there, and they were impressive, and everybody was talking about them. So, yes, you have to look at the Jets, and you cannot discount what the Jets are.
I think our guy David has something he wanted to say.
I just wanted to make sure I heard everything the Iceman was saying. There's a lot of material to take in on this edition of the Iceman and Tipton.
Oh, the Iceman and Tipton. I like it. Okay, so obviously, yeah. I don't know if I would want to look at the Jets though, because you're again like it's. But if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're looking at Vegas, right? Like you're in the division with Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be in the division with Josh Allen. These are young dudes that are super talented. Like I don't know, like if the Jets are the team that you can make that last hurrah with. Although it would be amazing if Aaron Rodgers did, because now you're mirroring exactly what Brett Favre did. And why not just end it in Minnesota? Like if you're going to do that, just do it the right way, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, and then he did lead them to the NFC Championship game, and they were a bad kick away from making the Super Bowl, and who knows how far they would have went that year. But yeah, I mean, look, sometimes beggars can't be choosers, and I mean, you're in an interesting situation where, well, there's only going to be so many teams that need your services and are going to offer you the kind of money that you're making. So, to me, the Raiders, the Jets, I mean, maybe 1 and 1A at this point.
Want to give a shout out once again to our friends over here at Bikini Joes, 3903 Rich Beem on the corner of Rich Beem and Zaragoza Boulevard. They have the Half Off Nachos special today. We got Des working behind the bar as well. She's doing a fantastic job keeping everybody hydrated and in a good old mood. They've got all kinds of basketball games going on today as well. They're going to have the Pro Bowl stuff a little bit later on today. And they're going to have the Super Bowl on Sunday, because if you don't have the Super Bowl and you're a bar on Sunday, you're obviously making one of the dumbest decisions you could have possibly done. Now then, LeBron James, Brent, on the verge of passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 62 points away from tying Kareem, 63 points away from passing what everyone thought was an unattainable record whenever Kareem set it back in 1983. Where does this put LeBron James on your Mount Rushmore? Because I also couple this question with this statistic that just last week, LeBron James passed Steve Nash for 4th all-time on the assist list.
Sure.
So he's going to be top 5 assists and number 1 scoring. How is he still living in the shadow of Michael Jordan?
Because he's number 2. I mean, he's number 2. And, I mean, look, I'm going to give him a lot of credit, because when you reach a milestone like that, an unbreakable record, a record of hitting more than 62 home runs, and of playing the games that Cal Ripken played consecutively, and there's certain coveted records in sports that seem like they're unbreakable until they're broken. But when you reach that mark, it's clearly puts you on another level than anybody else. And everything that's been accomplished, and everything the stats are wonderful, and certain stats are more respected than others. But in the end, you have to look at, I think, championships, and certainly going 6-0 in the finals, being a 6-time finals MVP. It's just, to me, a bit of a better accomplishment. Yet scoring is unbelievable, but this is a scorer's game today. This is a game that's drastically changed in the last 15 or 20 years. Nobody plays defense anymore. I would have liked to have seen what he would have done, in Jordan's era, when Jordan was in his prime, versus what he's done today. With that being said, I don't discount it. I don't take away from it. To me, he's always going to be number 2. That's my personal opinion. But damn, some people may say he's a very close second. He's unbelievable. He really is. I mean, it's an unbreakable record he's about to break, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record.
I look at it this way, right? I don't like comparing the whole, like, could this person have played now? Would this person have been able to thrive back then, right? There's people out there, because we had mentioned Babe Ruth earlier, that'll say if you picked up Babe Ruth and put him into today's game, he wouldn't be able to get a hit. I doubt that completely. Babe Ruth was playing with a 2x4.
Because it overlooks an athlete's ability to adjust to the game when the rules change.
It overlooks the athlete's ability to adjust to the game, 100%, right? If you gave Babe Ruth all of the science that we have today, you don't think he's hitting 700 home runs?
No doubt.
like,
No doubt.
Like he's a power hitter no matter what.
If he had all
era.
the steroids and all the PDs or whatever the hell they're called,
Yeah.
then he'd be doing just as well.
With the nutrition and exercise regimens that we now have today, would Babe Ruth have put up a battle and said, hey, the way I'm living, I'm always hitting good?
I think he would have, because it was Babe Ruth and he was smoking cigars.
I think a great player is great in any era. I mean, if you're just that good and you're that talented, you're going to be incredible in any era. So, I mean, even if you put LeBron back in that era, he's still going to be LeBron.
See,
the man's amazingly gifted.
And that's what I was going to say, right? Like, just like there'll never be another Jordan, just like there'll never be another Babe Ruth, there'll never be another Barry Bonds, there will never be another LeBron James. You don't have a freight train that's 6'8", 280 pounds, can handle the ball, can shoot, can rebound, can block, can pass, can do all of it, right? You're not going to get that again. Zion Williamson is like the wish version of who LeBron James is as a player,
either,
right? And then that's the thing. Look at the longevity that LeBron James has had.
It's unbelievable.
Granted, really he's only played a full NBA season, I want to say, like 4 or 5 times in his entire 20-year career.
But still, the wear and tear is ridiculous.
Yeah. But whenever you look at these just sheer amount of points, it's amazing what he's done. Mm-hmm. It's amazing that you got a guy who's going to be the only person in NBA history to be top 20 in both of those lists of scoring and assists. That means not only is he creating his own shots, he's creating shots for other people as well. The dude is just literally a specimen to behold in the basketball world. But you're right, he ain't Jordan.
No, he ain't.
He didn't change the game the way that Jordan did. Jordan brought it to such a global audience that's the legacy Jordan left behind. LeBron James wears number 23 because of Michael Jordan, right? So
he
like
changed the culture. He changed everything about the game.
Kobe Bryant mimicked his game so much so that you could just take the jersey off of who was playing, and you would see that it was exactly what he learned from Michael Jordan to try to be as great as he can be. But it's always going to be Michael Jordan. And yes, you can have people out there like, well, what about Bill Russell that won 11 championships? That's awesome. That was in the 1960s. If you're not going to count Yankees championships from back in the day, we might as well not count Boston championships from back in the day when there were 6 teams playing in the NBA and you all had to have your socks rolled up or pulled up as high as you could. You couldn't dunk, and you had, you couldn't palm basketballs the way you did. Have you ever seen the old school, what's the damn point guard's name? His name is escaping me right now. I have him in a Brandon Cohn moment.
Yeah, well, it happens, or senior moments. I don't know,
Oh, yeah, senior moment. I'm the youngest person here. What are you talking about, senior moments? Bob Cousy, there we go. The old school way that he would just dribble with the fingertips because you weren't allowed to do this with the ball and maneuver it the way that you can now. They would have no shot now, right? Like, just the game's so different.
It's changed.
But the way that Jordan expanded the game, the way that Jordan was able to grow the game, and the way that Jordan was able to just bring it to everybody and inspire so many people around the world, that's what makes him so much different than what LeBron James is. What they did in the basketball court, LeBron James, to me, a flatly much better all-around basketball player than Jordan. I don't think there's a discussion about that. But as far as the impact, the killer instinct, and that, je ne sais quoi that people talk about, it all goes to Jordan.
And not to mention that, obviously Jordan was one of the best defensive players of all time. And, I hate the argument that, he always had Pippen. Well, I mean, LeBron's always had his Robin no matter where he went, usually. Well, I mean, whether it's Kyrie Irving or Davis or whatever.
Well, not just with that. So Jordan played with one All-Star 6 times, which was Scottie Pippen. LeBron James has played with 21 different All-Star players.
And Jordan did have the greatest rebounder that ever existed, too, in Rodman II. But to me, what really clearly also separates him from LeBron is that who the hell retires for 2 years and comes back and wins 3 more championships with a pretty much a different team with the exception of Pippen being there. I mean, that's just unheard of. And the fact that, again, I'll go back to this, and I've said it many times, is that that's the only dynasty that didn't have a dominant center for the most part, because the center would have affected the triangle offense and clogged up the middle, which you could not have done in Phil Jackson's triangle offense and Tex Schramm's triangle offense. They didn't have a dominant center. I mean, you think Will Perdue was?
No, I mean, I agree. I agree with you. No, I agree. They didn't have a dominant center, but Phil Jackson and Tex Schramm's triangle offense went to LA with Shaq and was still pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's true. But remember, again, to me, you look at dynasties. Like, I'm talking real dynasties, and how many of them can you really count that haven't had that unbelievable center?
No, yeah, no, and that's 100%. Like, I never had actually thought of it that way, so you kind of blew my mind right there.
That's Jordan, man. I mean,
I guess San Antonio, right? Because if that dynasty, you go from the beginning all the way to the end. Tim Duncan wasn't the center; he was a power forward,
right?
And outside of David Robinson for the, I guess, first 3 years, it wasn't like a whole center. Like, they had people like Umberto Fabricio as their center, right?
Hey, you're a Fabricio.
If you're gonna bring out Will Perdue, I'll hit you with that hammer.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, hey, the Bulls had Bill Wennington. That's all I got to say.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, my brother, who travels with the Bulls now, is best friends with Bill Wennington.
Where did Bill Wennington start his career?
St. John's?
No. I mean, in the NBA.
I have the foggiest idea.
The Dallas Mavericks.
Did he? Okay.
Yes, and then he was traded to the Sacramento Kings before playing with the Chicago Bulls and winning himself a championship. You talk about a guy that went from shitty teams,
right,
to being with Jordan. I would take that route.
I mean, hey, he played with the greatest teams in NBA history, the Chicago Bulls, the greatest dynasty ever.
All right, Brandon, we're going to go ahead and call it a close on today. I can't wait until next week where we get to break down the Super Bowl a little bit more. Obviously, there's a whole bunch more we're going to talk about because LeBron James is going to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at some point during this week as the greatest scorer in the history of the NBA. He is looking down the pipe right now of even catching up to Chris Paul and surpassing Chris Paul on the all-time assist list, which is just utterly asinine whenever you think about it in that way. But congrats to LeBron James. Congrats to Tom Brady on a hell of a career. And let's see, how the rest of this week plays out as far as sports goes. Last thing I'll ask you, though, Brandon, Kyrie Irving, does he actually get traded or not?
Yeah, you got to get rid of him, man. He ain't done shit in New York. You got to trade him to L.A. because last time LeBron and
they have
Kyrie
nothing
got
to
together,
trade.
They got to figure something else. They're desperate to get rid of him, dude. He is a schmuck and a half, that guy. I'm sorry. He's really something. But if L.A. can somehow pull it off, then, man, watch out because you get Kyrie and LeBron back together. Last time they were together, they made, 3 straight finals? So should be interesting. We'll see what happens. Trade deadline coming up in, about 10 days or something? Yeah. So.
See our guy, Stephen Michael Puga, tuned in right now as well. And as we're getting ready to sign off, I'm just going to say this directly for you, my guy. Fuck the Eagles.